The Africa Climate Week took place in Libreville, Gabon from the 29th of August to the 2nd of September 2022. This conference gathered government, the private sector, cities, indigenous communities, youth and civil society to discuss Africa's needs and priorities ahead of COP27 scheduled to take place in November 2022 in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. Today we are having with us in studio Conseiller Amr Essam, who is part of the COP27 presidency team. And with him we shall be talking on how his country is preparing to host this important event for the African continent. Hello, Mr. Amr Essam.
Thank you, Ruth, for having me on Africa 24.
Thank you for joining us on Africa 24. So you are part of the COP27 presidency team. You took part in the 2022 edition of the African Climate Week, which took place in Gabon. Can you tell us what are the stakes of this conference for your country, Egypt?
Actually, the Africa Climate Week comes at a very timely moment, less than 70 days before COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. It is not actually a novelty that Gabon has very meaningful contribution to positioning Africa at the right place on the global climate agenda. And the previous contributions of Gabon continues with its very gracious hosting of the Africa Climate Week. It was a very good opportunity for Africa once again to consolidate the visibility of its needs and priorities and the situation of the climate response in Africa before the rest of the world. As you have mentioned, you have listened to the opening remarks of His Excellency Foreign Minister and COP President-designate Sameh Shoukry at the opening of the Africa Climate Week, when he spoke against climate injustice which is being exercised against Africa, a continent whose share of global greenhouse gas emissions is less than 4%, and which is hosting 17% of the world population, but nevertheless is receiving a less than minimal share of climate finance and support in a manner that enables it to perform its share part of the climate response and ensure resilience and transformative adaptation in the continent and for its people.
Like you mentioned earlier, Egypt will be hosting the COP27 amid delicate circumstances due to the energy and climate crisis and the consequences of the war in Ukraine. What is your vision towards this conference as part of the COP27 presidency team?
I think we are all collectively conscious of the difficult moment that our world is facing, the ensuing crises, either at the level of the food crisis, of the energy crisis, as well as the supply chain crisis and accessibility to basic services. And the COP27 comes with a very clear message that the COP President-designate Excellency Shoukry spoke about at the opening as well, that this is the moment where states parties to the Climate Change Convention, as well as all the other stakeholders, need to double their commitment to climate action. There is no plan B, and there is no opportunity for a U-turn. And the reports of the International Panel for Climate Change, International Governmental Panel for Climate Change, that were released earlier this year, confirmed without any shred of doubt the gravity of situation of the impact of climate change around the world, and particularly for our continent here in Africa, which is one among the most vulnerable to the impact of climate change across the different sectors of human activities and economy.
So what is Egypt doing on her path to cope this crisis? In Egypt firstly, then in Africa?
I think that Egypt, with its strong tradition of diplomacy, as well as with the strong partnerships and friendships that we have inside our African continent and the global South as a whole, as well as with the consistent and fruitful dialogue with the partners that we have around the world, including the major economies, this incoming presidency is aiming at providing a conducive environment for parties to have a constructive dialogue, frank and dynamic conversations about even the most difficult questions, with a view of reaching satisfactory outcomes that matches the expectations of all the people, especially the young people and the climate activists around the world who are waiting for results of COP27, results that matches its announcement as a COP for implementation and COP for action.
So what should we be expecting at the end of the COP27, like the result?
We expect actually outcomes that display progress across the board of the different issues. including on mitigation, reduction of emissions, and keeping the 1.5 temperature level alive. We are expecting progress as well on a transformative adaptation agenda. We are expecting progress for an appropriate finance, which is affordable, accessible, sufficient and effective, and also expecting an adequate response to the growing calls of responding to the issue of loss and damage resulting from climate change. The progress across the board in an equitable and balanced manner will continue to consolidate the credibility of the global climate agenda and the global climate conversation, and we're very keen that this happens in Sharm el-Sheikh and continues to happen beyond that.
So what is the importance of cooperation among the United Nations 5 regional committees and the Egyptian presidency of the COP27?
In May this year, a couple of months ago, the COP president designate, in collaboration with our high-level climate champion, Dr. Mahmoud Mohiuddin, as well as with the 5 United Nations regional economic commissions. They announced an initiative to host 5 regional roundtables that are dedicated for looking into the question of climate finance and investment, which is serving climate response and sustainable development. We already started earlier this month in Addis Ababa, which was a conversation focused on Africa and African needs and how to unlock possible additional avenues for mobilization of resources for climate response in our continent. And then we moved for the Asia-Pacific roundtable that took place in Bangkok. Yesterday was the roundtable that was specific on Latin America, as it happened in Santiago, Chile. And then we will move for the Middle East and North Africa, hosted by ESCWA in Beirut, and conclude with one for Western Europe and Northern America in Geneva, Switzerland in October. The consolidation of the recommendations of these roundtables and the new different ideas that will be taken note of during the different panel discussions and roundtables will be compiled, taken stock of, and will find their place to be considered at the right avenue in COP27.
Mr. Councillor, during the Africa Climate Week, the government and the stakeholders stressed on the fact that youth need to be involved in the fight against climate change. So I would like to know, how is Egypt preparing to mobilize the youth to actively take part in this event?
We always say that African COPs are among the most friendly for youth engagement. This is how our continent proved itself in Durban and then in Marrakesh, and this is how it will be in Sharm el-Sheikh, even taking additional steps in this direction. So we are proud ourselves of being in consistent and meaningful coordination and engagement with youth groups and youth representatives. Also, we pride ourselves of being the first presidency of a COP that announces a full-time dedicated youth envoy of a COP president. We will have a full day which is dedicated for thematic discussions on youth and future generations, which is a platform for young people to showcase their success stories, as well as their views about the challenges and the impact of climate change on their life and their contribution to climate response at the local, national, regional and international level. Not to mention the capacity building initiatives that we have launched for Egyptian youth, and ensuring the widest possible promotion of awareness and climate education to our young people. We're working also on a couple of exciting initiatives to enhance the opportunities of engagement and participation of African youth at COP27.
Great initiatives. Thank you. It was a pleasure having you on Africa 24.
Thank you very much, Ruth.